the nation of Israel, a living miracle. There are nations born out of revolution. There are nations carved through conquest. And then, there are nations that defy every rule of history. A people that should not exist, yet does. A nation that should have vanished, yet thrives. There is something about the people of Israel, something timeless, something extraordinary, something that feels like a living miracle. The story of Israel is not just a tale of survival. It is the story of scattering and return, of exile and restoration, of a people who wandered the earth and found their way home. More than 2,700 years ago, the Assyrian Empire swept through the northern kingdom of Israel. 10 of the 12 tribes were taken, scattered to the corners of the earth. They became the lost tribes, but not forgotten. Then came Babylon. In 586 BCE, Jerusalem fell. The first temple, Solomon's glory, was torn stone from stone. The elite, the priests, the prophets, exiled to the rivers of Babylon. They wept, but they remembered. 70 years later, the captives returned, led by Ezra, Nehemiah, and a renewed hope. They rebuilt their walls, their temple, their faith. But the peace did not last. In 70 CE, Rome unleashed its fury. Jerusalem burned once more. The second temple leveled, hundreds of thousands killed, the rest exiled. In 135 CE, after the Bar Kokhba revolt, Emperor Hadrian banned all Jews from Jerusalem. He renamed the land Palestina to erase their identity. And so began nearly 2,000 years of wandering. From Spain to Yemen, from Russia to Morocco, from the ghettos of Europe to the sands of Arabia, the Jewish people became strangers in every land, carrying their scrolls, their prayers, their Sabbath candles, dreaming of one word, Zion. And yet, through pogroms, inquisitions, expulsions, and Holocaust, they never let go. For 2,000 years, every Passover meal ended with a single vow: next year in Jerusalem. And then, the impossible happened. After the Holocaust, after 6 million were buried in silence, the nations gathered. And on May 14, 1948, in a world still reeling from war, Israel was reborn. A people exiled for millennia came home. From the four winds they returned. From Europe's ashes, survivors walked ashore. From Yemen's deserts, barefoot children sang in Hebrew. From Iraq's rivers, families took flight in Operation Ezra and Nehemiah. From Ethiopia's mountains, they journeyed in silence and shadows. From the north, the south, the east, and the west, the exiles returned, and the land waited for them. Swamps turned to cities. Dust became orchards. The Hebrew language, once a prayer, became a living tongue again. A flag was raised. A nation was born. And prophecy walked into reality. Who has heard of such a thing? Can a nation be born in a day? Can a people scattered for centuries rise from the ruins? And yet, they did. Not by power alone, not by chance, but by promise. Because the same God who scattered them had also sworn to gather them again. And today, Israel lives, not only in the land, but in the heart of every Jewish soul. A testimony to the world that exile is not the end, and return is always possible. This is not just a comeback story. This is a miracle in motion. And the final chapter is still being written. More than 3,000 years ago, the pharaohs of Egypt enslaved them, beat them, and tried to erase them from the earth. They failed. 2,500 years ago, the Babylonians came with fire, chains, and exile. They failed. 2,000 years ago, the Roman Empire destroyed their temple, their cities, and scattered them across the world. Still they failed. Just 80 years ago, the Nazis built camps of horror. 6 million murdered in cold blood. 6 million gone, but not broken. They failed too. 5 brutal wars were launched by their neighbors, all with one aim: to wipe Israel off the map. But still, Israel stands. And yet, this is only a fraction of their story. Go back further, into the shadows of ancient history. The Canaanite kings raged against them. They failed. The Midianites, with cruel oppression, tried to break their spirit. They failed. The Amalekites, ancient enemies, ambushed the weak and defenseless. They failed. The Philistines, with giants and warriors, rose again and again. They failed. The Assyrians invaded the northern kingdom, exiling 10 tribes. They failed to erase them from the covenant. The Persian Empire, under Haman, plotted genocide. But one Jewish queen stood in the gap. They failed. The Seleucid Greeks outlawed their faith, defiled their temple, and a band of Maccabees rose. They failed. The Moabites, Edomites, and Syrians each tried to bring Israel down in cycles of violence. They failed. The Sumerians and false prophets sought to distort their identity, poison their purpose. They failed. Through exile, slavery, betrayal, and captivity, they survived. They endured. They thrived. Now move forward into the modern age. And the fire does not stop. In 1920, Arab riots in Jerusalem targeted Jews praying at the Western Wall. They failed. In 1929, the massacre in Hebron tried to crush the Jewish presence. They failed. In 1936, a massive Arab revolt tried to terrorize Jewish immigration. They failed. In 1948, 5 Arab armies invaded the newborn state of Israel. They were supposed to be wiped out in days, but they failed. In 1956, the Suez Crisis tested Israel's sovereignty. They failed. In 1967, the Six-Day War, Israel was surrounded on 3 sides, outnumbered and threatened with annihilation. In 6 days, they gained Jerusalem, Judea, Samaria, and the Golan Heights. They failed. In 1973, on Yom Kippur, Israel's holiest day, Egypt and Syria launched a surprise attack. They failed. In 1982, during the Lebanon War, Israel fought terror on its northern border. They failed. In 2006, Hezbollah rained rockets from the north. They failed. In 2008, 2012, 2014, 2021, 2023, waves of terror and rocket attacks came from Gaza. Each time, they were met with iron resolve. And now, today, even as enemies rise again from every side, from Iran to proxies across the region, even as global opinion wavers and political storms brew, Israel still stands. And not just stands. She builds. She grows. She flourishes. How? Because this is not just about land or politics. This is about purpose. This is about a covenant that cannot be broken, a destiny that cannot be denied. This is a people who gave the world monotheism, who shaped moral law, who birthed prophets, kings, and saviors. This is a people who fight, not for conquest, but for survival, for peace, for the right to live freely in the land promised to their fathers. They are descendants of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, of Moses, Joshua, and Samuel, of David, Solomon, and the prophets. This is not just a people. This is not just a nation. This is a miracle with a heartbeat, a testimony that fire cannot consume, that hate cannot crush, that history cannot deny. Yes, Israel is not perfect, but it is real. It is resilient. It is remarkable. The world has tried. Empires have tried. Dictators have tried. Terrorists have tried. And yet, Israel lives. Israel rises. Israel shines. The story is not over. It is still being written, by the same hands, guided by the same promise, still protected by the same God. A nation of miracles, a people of destiny. Israel stands. This is no ordinary people, small in number, mighty in resilience, blessed with something the world cannot always explain. No oil, no vast empire, just a people, with liberty, with democracy, with fierce intelligence and unshakable will. They turned a desert into a garden, a barren land into a land of innovation. They gave the world voices that shaped entire fields of knowledge. Einstein, Freud, Kafka, Spinoza, Marx, geniuses who changed how the world thinks. And yet, beyond the brilliance, beyond the battles, beyond the headlines, lies something deeper, a divine thread that connects Abraham to Moses, to David, to every Jewish child born into a promise. Still unfolding, this is the people who brought monotheism to the world, who introduced the idea of one God, of moral law, of sacred purpose. Even now, surrounded on all sides, they fight not just for survival, but for destiny. They've been called tired, weakened, ready to fall. And then, they rise again, opening a new front, taking on threats that intimidate even entire regions. How? Why? Because within this people is the patience of the righteous, the wisdom of the prophets, the courage of kings, and the endurance of survivors. This is not just strength. It is calling. It is purpose. It is promise. If only the world would see it. If only their neighbors could look beyond the smoke and war and recognize the opportunity to learn, to cooperate, to rise together. For those who bless this nation often rise with it, and those who curse it find themselves wrestling with the weight of history. Israel is not perfect. No nation is. Neither is anyone. But to deny its miracle is to turn your back on one of the clearest stories of destiny in our time. This is not just a people, not just a country. This is a living miracle, and the story is far from over.